thanks for joining me today. My name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK. Today I want to show you how to make this card here. It's just a fancy fold card that I've done for a blog hop this coming weekend, so I thought it'd be nice to show you how it was made. So this is our front of our card. As you can see from the top, it has several layers through it, so I'm going to talk you through how to do that. So we're going to open our card to start with. So there's plenty of area to decorate. So what I'm going to show you today is how to make the base of your card, and then you can obviously develop it and embellish it as much as you want to, but I want to show you how the actual mechanism works. So I've got this little half moon here, so if I pull that slowly, you can see it will flip over, and then you get lots and lots of area that you can decorate, or you can put some photos on, or anything you want to really. I've put this little area here so you can write a little greeting to whoever you want to send it to, or alternatively you could use this side if you wanted to as well. So this is done in centimetre measurements because I'm based in the UK. It would be quite easy to adapt into inches. You would just need to think about how you would do a borders and things like that. You'll see what I mean as I go through and make it for you. So I can just see one of my little confetti's just popped off there. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to close that up for now, and then I'm going to show you how it's made, and then you can see for yourself. So I'm going to be using the Very Delightful Designer Series paper, which is the papers that were part of one of our celebration promotions. So it's the last day, actually tomorrow, so this won't be available after tomorrow, but I just wanted to use it just to show you how beautiful it was really. So okay, let's get started. So I'm going to be using Poppy Parade cardstock because that's what matches my design. And I first of all want to cut my card base. So this is a standard card base as far as the UK is concerned, but we're making it just slightly shorter because what we're going to do, we're going to have that little semicircle. So that's going to take up a little bit of our normal area. So we need to cut this at 28 centimetres by 10.5. So I'm going to cut it at the 10.5 first, so that the other half will be like a standard card, so I can use that another time. And this one is going to measure 28 in length here. So it's 28 by 10.5 centimetres. I'm then going to score it in half. So it's 28, so we're going half at 14. So as I say, our normal C6 or A6 card will be 14.85. So it's just that little bit smaller. Okay, so that's our base card. That's nice and simple. So now what I want to do is start cutting some DSP to decorate our front of our card. So I'm going to be using this berry one here. So we actually want 3 pieces the same size. So you want 1 for the front, and then you want 2 for the inside. Now obviously this one is covered quite a lot, so it's up to you whether you want to use something a little bit plainer, or whether you want to use all 3 different ones. It's entirely up to you. So I'm going to have this one on the front. So I need to cut this at 13.5 centimetres by 10. So that's my 10 by 13.5. Okay, so that will be the front of my card there. As I say, I'm just going to show you the layers. The decoration I will do at another time, once you've actually worked out how it works. So then I'm going to use this checkered one here. So again, I need this to be at 13.5 by 10. So I'm going to cut the 13.5. I can use this little strip on a coordinating card that I might do for something else. And again at 10 centimetres, and I need 2 of those for the inside. Okay, So what we can do now is we can actually stick our one on the front. So I'm going to do that first. It's better for me to do this as we go, because then you'll be able to see exactly where everything belongs. It's so pretty, this paper. Just make sure my berries are up the right way. Okay, so that's just my one on my front, and then as I say, I would go on to decorate that exactly as I want to. And then I'm going to open it up, and one of these is going to stick on the inside. Now, when I made the original of this card, after I'd made it, I kind of decided to add this ribbon on here. So once I'd tied it on, I actually had to cover my ribbon so that the mechanism didn't catch on it. So if you're adding a ribbon, I would suggest that you do it now, and then you can put your DSP over the top of it. So I think that's what I'll do now. So I'm just using some of our just white satin ribbon that we've got here. And I'm just going to take a little bit of double-sided sticky tape. Now I have got a border around this, so I'm just going to stick it a little bit in of my score line, just so that I don't actually have any of it showing. So I'm going to take the back off that, and then I'm just going to give myself plenty of ribbon, just so I know that when I come to tie this on the front, I've got plenty to actually tie a bow. I'm going to add a little bit more there, I think. And again, I'm just going to give myself plenty down there so that I know that I've got plenty to play with. Okay, so now I can stick this layer. Seems awful sticking glue on this beautiful paper. So I'm going to stick that down. So it's covering my ribbon, so when my mechanism is in place, it's not going to get caught on that in any way, shape or form. So at this stage, you do not want to stick this one down. We need to do some work on that first of all. So I can put my card to one side. As I say, I'll tie this in a bow or a knot or whatever when we're a bit further down the line. So now we need to cut a further piece of cardstock. So again, I'm using the Poppy Parade, and this one needs to be cut to 12.5 by 7.5. Okay, so this piece is actually this piece under here. So this is our little section under this piece here. Okay, so that's there. So the next thing we need to do is we need to cut a piece of DSP, which is going to be this piece here. And this one needs to be 13.5 centimetres by 7. So I think what I might do is use possibly the berries again on this. So it's 7 centimetres by 13.5. So I know this looks a bit odd at this stage because it's actually larger than our card underneath, but there is a reason for that. I will explain in a moment as we go along. So the next thing we need to do is our piece of DSP that we cut earlier. So this is our matching one for the inside of our card. So this is the one that's going to go in here, and we need to cut this. Okay, so I'm going to measure it on the reverse because it'll be easier to show you. But on the top edge and the bottom edge, we want to mark it at 1.5 centimetres. So So I'm actually going to draw this in pencil, so hopefully you can see it, and it'll probably help you actually to draw your own in pencil. We're going to cut it with a knife in a moment, but I think if you've got a pencil line, it'll be easier to work to. Okay, and then on the other sides, we want to mark and draw again at 1 centimetre. So the top and bottom, it's at 1.5, and at either side, it's at 1 centimetre. So we're just creating our border effectively. Let's help if you can actually see the pencil marks. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a border that's on 4 sides. They're narrower at the sides and larger at the top and bottom. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to cut into this. So we need to do this with a knife and ruler because we need it to be a nice strong line. You could possibly do this on a trimmer. It wouldn't be as easy, but it's entirely up to you. If you haven't got a craft knife, then that's absolutely fine. What we do need to bear in mind is where our cuts are going to be. Now, on this particular paper, it doesn't actually matter because it's a pattern that is repetitive, so it doesn't matter which way up I have it. This side is going to be covered anyway. So it really doesn't matter, but what we need to do is we need to cut these 2 long lines first. So I'm just going to cut those. Okay, and then what we need to do is we need to cut the side that is against our crease in our card here. So this side will remain attached, but we do need to cut down this side. Now this is only relevant if your paper is a particular direction, because obviously if you cut the wrong side, your paper would be upside down. So it's worth just placing it on your card just to see which one you're going to cut. And then once you're happy that you've got it where you want it to be, you can just then cut that end line. Okay, so now what I've got is this sort of flap here. So what I want to do is on this pencil line, I'm just going to take a scoring tool and I want to score along that line there. Okay, so just be careful as you fold it, but I like to fold it in both directions just to make sure it's really nicely creased. Okay, and we want you to position it in this direction. So this is our frame, and our little flap that we've created here, we're just going to fold out to the back. Okay, so the next thing I need you to do, if I can explain what pieces these are, hopefully it will make a little bit more sense. So this frame is this speckled one here, and this piece is actually this paper, but we will see the sorry, this is this paper, so we'll actually see the other side of that in a moment when we actually put it together. It all becomes clear. It's a bit difficult to understand at the moment, I'm sure. You can see here, this is this window that we've created. So I don't know if you can see inside, but it's kind of the way it moves, it sort of folds back on itself, but I don't know whether you can really see that. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to create some further score lines. So that's our next thing, and then we'll actually put it together. So on this one here, we want to add 3 more score lines. And again, if I could possibly show you, they are these. So these are the score lines we're creating in here. Okay, so they're at 1.5 centimetres. So from this end, we want to make 3 lots of score lines, each at 1.5 centimetres. Okay, so I'm going to start at 1.5 there, 1.5 there and 1.5 there. And again at the bottom I need to mark them at 1.5, 1.5 and 1.5. So effectively I've got like 3 channels here. Okay, so where I've marked these pencil marks, we're now going to score these just carefully, because remember it's DSP, so we don't want it to be scored too heavily, because obviously it's a lot lighter than cardstock. So we're going to just score those across. Okay, and I'm just going to fold them, just give them a nice burnish, just so we get a nice soft fold on them. Okay, so that's where we started. So this will start becoming apparent. So what happens is this will disappear underneath when we pull out our pulley. So that sort of will disappear under there. So at the moment they're quite fragile, so just be a little bit careful of them. So that's to one side. So now what we need to do is to glue our paper onto our pulley that we actually cut earlier. But the first thing I want to do is to add a little semicircle to it. So for my semicircle, I'm using the Stitched Shapes dies, and I'm using the largest circle in this collection. So we just want a little part of it. So I'm just going to take a scrap of card, and I'm just going to cut onto the edge of this, and then I'll show you how I attach it. Okay, so I've just cut a little sort of semicircle from that. Now you'll find that you could use any shape for this. So you could use a punch if you've got a punch. Now when I made the original one, I actually attached this on the reverse, and I found what happened, it sometimes got a little bit stuck underneath. So what I've done for this one, I'm just going to stick it onto the edge here. Now I don't want it to stick out too much, so it's on top, and I'm just going to tuck it in here, just so that I've got probably, I don't know, a couple of centimetres out of the edge. It doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be precise. And you will find if you're using this particular die that the ends are just a little bit too wide, so I'm just going to snip those off. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can attach my paper. So again, I'm just gluing onto here. Now this is longer, remember, so it is going to stick off the end, but we'll actually attach that to our other paper in a moment. So I'm just going to line this up on here, just so that I've got an even border at the ends and at the 2 sides. And as I say, this is where it's sticking out just a little bit. Now what I want to do is I want to attach this onto my paper that I've got here. Now it's not quite as wide as this, but that's just to help you line it up really. So what I'm going to do is turn them both over, and then I can stick this one up to that line, okay? So these 2 pieces are now attached. As I say, it is slightly shorter, but that's absolutely fine. That's what we wanted to do. I'm then just going to crease this very lightly, and then crease it back on itself so that it actually looks like this. Now, I'll demonstrate this very carefully, because as I say, this is just with paper at the moment, so we want to make sure that we're not actually pulling it too hard while it's not attached. But you'll see as I pull this, these sections will disappear underneath each other, which is what we're trying to achieve. And this is going to be our little place where we do our greeting, and then this is going to be where all our layers are attached. Okay, so now that I've done that, I need to glue this into my card. But what I want to do is I need to make sure that my card is not going to get caught on any glue. So I recommend that you use double-sided tape for this purpose, purely because wet glue has a tendency to sort of leak out a little bit, so we want to try and make it as foolproof as we can. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go really close to the outside edges of the paper. Now this is our tear tape, so it's quite useful for this because I can literally just tear it as I go. Okay, and just remember, not this end, but this is where our pulley needs to go. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm just going to remove the backs from my tape, and I'm just going to partially remove them just so it's easy for me to line it up, and then I can remove them entirely at the end. Okay, so that just gives me an opportunity just to line it up before I pull the tape out entirely. So I'm just going to line that up. Okay, so once I'm happy that that's all in place, which I am, I'm then just going to pull my tape lightly, and I know it's not going to move anywhere. Okay, so now that that is stuck down, you can see a little bit, and got a tiny bit of glue just sticking out the end there. Okay, so now that this is stuck down, you can test it properly for yourself. So again, just be a little bit careful. It will, once we get the layers on it, it's a lot more robust. So just be careful at this stage as you're pulling it, and you can see that's where we're going to end up. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to cut our layers. So these are these card layers that we've got here. Okay, so I'll give you all the measurements, and then I'll cut them as we go, and then I'll show you how it goes together. This is what I mean by it getting caught just on this edge here. So that's why we stuck the semicircle on the top section rather than underneath. Okay, so we need to cut several layers, first of all in cardstock and then also in DSP. So I'm going to start off with the cardstock. So we need our first piece to measure 11.5 by 8 centimetres. I'm just using up some of my scraps here. So it's 11.5 by 8. Take some more card. So our next layer is going to be 10 by 8. I'm going to cut the 10 first, and then the 8. So that's our second layer, and you'll see they'll get progressively shorter by 1.5 centimetres. So the next one needs to be 8.5 by 8. And then our final one out of the cardstock needs to be 7 by 8. Okay, so as you can see, we've got 4 pieces of cardstock. Turn that one around the right way. Each one is progressively smaller by 1.5 centimetres. Okay. So now we need to cut our cardstock, so our DSP, I beg your pardon. So this is where you need to consider your patterns, okay? So if I open it first of all, the first one we're going to be cutting is this one here. Now my background on this card is the check, so I'm going to put something that's going to complement that check, and I think I'm going to go back to my berries for that particular one. And just remember, if you've got directional paper, what way you need them to be as well, okay? So this is in landscape format, so I need my longest piece to be in the landscape orientation. So I've cut 11 centimetres by 7.5. So that will go onto that one there. If I open the card again so that you can see the next layer. So the next one we're going to do is this one here. So we need to cut 2 pieces of DSP for this one. So I've done the berry on the top. So I think for this next one, I'm going to go with something completely different. I'm going to go with this, this green check one. And this one needs to measure 9.5 by 7.5. I'm going to cut mine that way. You'll see why we need 2 in a moment. So that's 2 of those. So the next layer, I'm going to go back to my berries, and this needs to be 8 by 7.5. So again, just remember which one is your correct orientation. So this one actually changes because our 8 is the higher portion. So again, just bear that in mind. So I'm going to cut this at 7.5, and I want this to be 8 wide, and again I need 2 of those. So they are going to go that way around. And then finally for this layer here, and we only need 1 of these, that's up that way. I've used the berries, so I think I'm going to go back to my check, and this one needs to be 6.5 by 7.5. So it doesn't matter because this one has no real orientation, it can go either way. It doesn't really matter what way I cut that one. So that is going to go on there. So the first thing I want to do is to stick all my layers together, and then what we'll do is we'll actually put them onto our card. So I'm going to stick this one first. Okay, so that's all our layers stuck together. So now what we need to do is attach them to our base. Now, I don't know how well it will pick it up on the camera, but we've got these 3 sections of 1.5 centimetres. So that's where we're going to start, okay? So I just want to add glue to that first 1.5 centimetres. So I'm going just inside the score line. And I want to take my largest piece first, and I want to line up this edge right on the very edge here. Okay, so I want to make sure that it's nicely lined up. It should automatically sort of line up itself, but just make sure that that is firmly stuck. I'm going to pull this very carefully because I want this to fold back on itself, so that it turns round to the next 1.5 centimetres. Okay, so this is our next layer. So I'm going to add another piece of cardstock to here. So this is our next layer. So this is our checked layer, and again this edge needs to line up with the very edge of our paper. just take your time just to try and make sure that this lines up nicely, because this will help with the actual mechanism when it opens and shuts. See, I've got a little bit of stray glue there. So the second piece that we cut, sorry, beg your pardon, which is under here, is going to stick onto this side here. So that's why we had to cut two of the two middle sections. Okay, and again, I'm just going to pull it very, very carefully just to make sure that it's stuck properly, and then I can flatten it back on itself and then just rub it down so I know that it's nice and secure. And again, I'm on my last 1.5 cm here. So again, just add in glue to that section. And we're going to take the next size up, which is this one here. So just remember which way round it goes. And I've actually stuck my berries on the wrong way. Can you see? This is where when I cut it, I said to you it was actually around the other way, but in fact it wasn't. So just bear that in mind when you're sticking things down, that you've actually got your paper up the right way. What I'll do is I'm going to stick this down anyway. And then what I'll do in a moment is I will cut myself 2 new ones. In fact, I'll do that straight away. So this is our 3rd layer. So I need my longest length, which is the 8 centimeters, to be on the landscape. So I'm going to cut 8 centimeters, and it's by 7.5. Quite good when we make mistakes, because you can see how you can put them right. That's what I say. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick this one directly over the top, and then I'll stick the other one over here, and then you'll never know. This one I'm popping over the top. As I say, you won't notice once it's all decorated, you won't notice that that's even a double layer. It saved me cutting another piece of card as well. So there we go. Easily corrected. Okay, so I'm going to pull it out again once more. So this is our final one here. Just going to lay that flat. Now this is the one where the orientation changes, so just be careful that you're not tempted to stick it this way. This is where it's actually changed. So I'm just going to stick again, but this time I want to stick it on the whole of this section up to this score line here. And I do actually need to cut another piece of paper. So it is 2 on the last section as well. So if I quickly cut that. So that was 6.5 by 7.5. So this is where you might find it easier to cut your layers as you go, because then obviously you can cut your cardstock all at once, but if you save cutting your papers till it's actually in front of you, then you'll be sure to get the right orientation of your papers. Okay, so I'm just going to take my bone folder now and just make sure that every layer is stuck nicely down. So I'm just pushing that back, and again just making sure that they're all stuck. So there we go. So that is the inside made. So if I open that carefully, you can see that's all your layers that you'll get to decorate. Put your plain piece here if you want it to be a signatory place. And then obviously I shall tie my bow at the front. I'm just going to do this in a double knot for quickness. Just adds a nice little edge on it, I think. Okay, so that's our front done. As I say, you can decorate it entirely as you like. All I would recommend is that you avoid using any kind of dimensionals on your inside layers, because this is already quite thick. It will go in a standard envelope, but it won't go as normal postage. It would be a large postage stamp here in the UK. So it is a little bit thicker. I have used these little confetti pieces because they're just so adorable. I had to use them in here, but even these are maybe a tiny little bit too thick, in the sense that it makes the card obviously spread out a little bit here. It looks lovely when it's standing up though, and you can kind of pull it out so it sort of you can see inside it, which is really nice. But just avoid using any kind of real dimensionals. Don't use things like gems because they stick up even further. You could consider using sort of some little dots or something like that, just to decorate things if you wanted to, perhaps with some crystal effects or something on them, just to make them that sort of glossy. But that's entirely up to you. That's all about decoration. Just don't add too much to the centre, because obviously there's quite a lot going on already. Okay, so I hope that explains how it was made. If you are working in inches, I would say that probably your borders here, I'd probably be looking at least 1/2 inch top and bottom, and maybe sort of a little bit shorter at your sides, but you should be able to adapt it. It's not that far adrift from your sizes if I worked into inches, so it's nearly 5.5 anyway, and nearly 4.25, so it's not actually that far adrift. As I say, 1/2 inch top and bottom would probably be better, and then sort of 3/8 of an inch, something like that at the sides, so you can just easily adapt it. It's one of those that you can just adapt very, very quickly and easily. So that's it. So I hope you like that, and we'll give it a go, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye.